Chronicles. I am Kathy Grimm, the Grimm Reader, here to give you another weekly update on what I have been reading since the last time I spoke with you, which was last Tuesday. And I have not finished anything. I've almost finished one short thing, but I think I'm going to talk about that second. So so in the meantime, the novel I've started, it's not very long either, but it's still not finished. And for the usual reasons, I'm not finishing a lot of things these days because I'm busy. I'm, for example, busy teaching my fairy tale course where I have to reread everything I'm teaching, which isn't that much, but it's something. And I do like to at least glance at the texts that I've been teaching over the years. For example, tomorrow we're discussing Hans Christian Andersen's, I'm going to try and say it in Danish, although I don't speak Danish, Den Lille Hofro, The Little Mermaid from 1837, and such a wonderful, sad story. It's really a pleasure and honor to teach such a sort of canonical text of world literature. You know, it's, of course, it's a fairy tale, but it's so much more, and it's had such an influence in the world that I just love teaching it. And he is very interesting. And I kind of use the one session that we have for this fairy tale to do a little bit of really basic stuff. For example, where is Denmark? What kind of country is it? You know, like, I'm not even sure if my students know where Denmark is. Some of them might know, but I'm always surprised at how little they know about Europe, really. You know, I mean, unless they're German majors, and that's a whole different group of students. This is really a gen ed class for all different kinds of majors. Quite a few of them are education majors, middle childhood education. Some of them are coming in from the business school, so you have a very wide range of, you know, in terms of what they know about the world and literature. So pretty basic stuff, but also fun. Anyway, enough about the fairy tale class. So the novel I started was my first Joseph McElroy, the Letter Left to Me, which I picked up at a library sale at some point. And I know that he's also one of these, he's written the maximalist novel that people rave about, Women and Men. But I thought I would start with this shorter one because of being a slow reader and not having a lot of time. And it's really good. I'm really enjoying it. I really like his style so far. So it's, let's see, this is from 1988. It's an interesting style. It is, what's the word here? What's a good word to describe the style? It's not completely transparent. Like, you have to sort of piece things together as to what is actually going on in terms of the narrative. And so in that sense, it is postmodern, I guess. The word that comes to mind is oblique. He has an oblique style, but it's not completely sort of random stuff. There is a story, and it is kind of connected. And it's basically the thoughts of this very young man, 15, who has been handed by his mother a letter from his father, who has recently passed away. So that's the sort of thing that gets the plot going, is this letter. So it's interesting. One of the really interesting aspects of these first few pages that I've read is the presentation of time. It's sort of, what's the word? Like, it holds time to hone in on very precise descriptions of furniture, how they're standing in relationship to each other, and what's going on in this person's mind. A lot of it is in his mind, but precisely because it's in his mind, time is unhinged in a certain sense. So it goes to memories, and of course they're both dealing with the recent death of his father and her husband, and so they're consumed with grief, and they're consumed with thinking about, you know, you can sort of tell it's a really good depiction, I think, of grief. You know, the times that I've kind of experienced it just from losing parents, it does, you know, whenever you're in that strange in between, everything seems slightly unreal, you know, and everything does kind of slow down, and you're not quite sure, and you are sort of hyper aware of certain things. And I think he captures that really, really well. And also there's a sense of, what's the word? Tension or interest that moves the plot along, because very, very slowly we are getting snippets from the letter that the father wrote, also in a very oblique way. He doesn't just sit down and read you the letter. No, this is going to take perhaps even the whole book. I don't know. But interwoven are memories of that the young man has of his father, that are really kind of well laid out, and also somewhat, and they're not always they're kind of also told in this oblique way. But if you think about memories, that's kind of how memories are. And in general, his relationship to his parents. I'm just looking at one page here that how they got him up to listen to a Joe Louis fight. So he was younger, and he's listening to Joe Louis fighting, and how he remembers that. And he remembers sort of an outing with his father, and an interesting outing where they go into a restaurant, and the wait staff doesn't serve them. He's just kind of doesn't care about them, and so they have to kind of get up and leave. And the father kind of makes a statement about these people. This fella doesn't need our business, he says. And so of course this kind of that awkward moment, has that happened to other people? Because I mean, I'm sure it's happened to us a couple of times. I get really impatient, and I'm sort of one of these people. I kind of look around and see, why are they being served before me? You know, not. I try and be cool, but I hate that. I hate like the little games that sometimes are being played. And if I sense that, I'm up and out. So the awkward moments of life, you know, that we all have experienced, perhaps. Unless maybe you haven't. But yeah, so I'm really enjoying it. It's going slow because I don't read that much. I read a little bit in the morning, a little bit at night, and it will take me a while, even though it's not that long. But that's that. So we'll see how it goes. I'll give you an update next week, probably. And the thing that I should really have finished, but have not, and so the German post-war writer Arno Schmidt, it's going to be a project. Not the story. The story will be done soon, but his life and his works are just so fascinating to me, and they're getting more fascinating. They're not losing their fascination. And so the story that I'm almost done with is Enthymesis. And I'll look around. I don't know if it's in English. It's an early work, and I've done a little bit of digging on the internet, as one does with a story like this. And so this was published perhaps like very soon after the war, 1946, so quite early on. I'm forgetting when he was born. He was like born, he wasn't that young during the war. He was already married. He didn't have kids. He was with his wife for a long time until he died, and they never had kids, which I think is kind of interesting. Maybe they made a decision, or you don't know. He was kind of a strange person who seems to have been very, very interested in writing and in honing his craft, from what I can gather. And so, you know, and also one thing that is endearing to me, he seems to have been he loves books, and I found, so one of the interesting great things I found on the internet was an annotated list of all the books in his library. And guess how long this text is, this PDF file? It's over 700 pages of all the books that he owned. And I'm just kind of looking at it. I haven't really done anything systematic, because it's really just a list of books. But it is interesting to see, and they're all kind of kept in this little modest house. He was never well off. His works never were, you know, bestsellers, far from it. He didn't want to be that. So he really was kind of, you know, he was in it for the art and not for the money at all, completely. And I know that one thing I found out, I'll give you more, this will be an ongoing thing with Arno Schmidt. So one interesting thing, he was, at the end of his life, so the heir to one of the big tobacco companies, Rietzma is a Arno Schmidt aficionado and scholar. Jan Rietzma, I think is his name. He's actually really interesting, because he wrote a book that I really want to read. He was kidnapped and held for ransom, and he wrote a book about it. I think that's fascinating. And then he's also someone who loves Arno Schmidt. So what an interesting guy. I think he's a professor. And he decided to award Arno Schmidt the same amount of money that he would have gotten if he'd gotten the Nobel Prize. Isn't that cool? I mean, I think that's just so interesting, because he was kind of put up for the prize, but he didn't get it. He just didn't have the sort of the well-known factor that you need to have to get the prize. I mean, quite a few other German writers have gotten it, up until Peter Handke, who's done some really weird things lately. So I don't know what was going on there. But Yeah, so really interesting. And just like he's one of these people that the more you find out, the more you want to find out. I mean, me, because he's such a sort of perfectionist, you can tell. And so, and he's also very interested. He was apparently really good at math. And so even in the army, he was stationed in Norway for a lot of the war and somewhere else. And then after the war, so they were living, the family had been living in eastern parts of Germany. And they fled from the Red Army, as many, many other German people did. And they came over, and then he, I guess, was still with the army. And so he voluntarily went into British, said, take me as your prisoner, sort of. So he's a British prisoner of war because he wanted to be a British one as opposed to a Russian one. And very, very soon he was hired to do translation work because he spoke English well and could translate. And so pretty soon, like 46, he starts writing this story. And another area that's fascinating is that the way he sort of has written his work is very well sort of plotted and well thought out. Every work kind of fits together in a certain way, and there's kind of connections between the works. And I was just reading somewhere, oh yeah, it's the place that I sometimes hang out, a certain Discord. They were talking about how Joyce is sort of everything he did one of them really well, and then he just kept going, and it was sort of this intensity, the of his. And Schmidt seems to be the same type of thing in a way, like anyway. And so the story is part of one of his, they call it in German, antike Erzählungen. So he's placed it in this sort of about 220 BC, and it's a group of people who are called Beamtists. So I guess Alexander the Great had these people who would measure steps to basically measure the land. And this group is not really connected to Alexander the Great, I don't think, at least not, I'm not sure about that. But this one guy, and basically it's this guy's diary of this expedition and of his thoughts, and while on the expedition, and about the people on the expedition, about all kinds of other people. So once again, you're in one person's mind, and a very strange, wacky mind it is. He seems to sort of, it's also very oblique. I'm trying to put it all together, but my sense is that he sometimes gets drunk and then kind of goes crazy. Or there's one scene that's a dream where it's an interesting story that he tells, but it's something he dreamt. And then suddenly he wakes up, sort of. So I'm not quite sure. But it is all about the landscape that they're traversing. And it's the Sahara, so it's the desert. And there is a sense of that some people are saying that they should go back because their water's running out and he doesn't want to. So there's sort of, and so it's a group of people, an expedition to survey this place. But on top of that, or, it's not really that, because it's also thoughts about a very, very powerful, overpowering power, that this person hates. So it's kind of metaphor for post-Germany, post-Hitler stuff is in there too. And I think there are quite a few deliberate anachronisms that I'm not getting all of them, but one of them is that he talks about books a lot. And, as far as I know, 220 people didn't really have books or burn books. As far as I know, tell me if I'm wrong. Did they have books? Didn't they have papyrus? I don't know what they had. But he's actually talking about books and books burnings and being able to take his books with him. The way he talks about his stuff, it sounds like he's a soldier in the Second World War almost, to me. So yeah, there's a lot going on. But the writing is superb. It's not really modern though. It's sort of like almost poetically kind of old-fashioned, but really good. And so I did find out from looking at the library and some other stuff. For example, one of the texts that I found online is it's a master's degree diploma essay, 100 pages long, that is a very in-depth notation of this story and another story. So I keep looking at that one to kind of get more insight into what's going on, because they go through everything or a lot of the stuff in the story. And so now I've lost my chain of thought. What was I talking about? So that's what I was going to say about looking at that text. Oh, I'm sorry. Gosh, what was I going to say? So yeah, the books And the stuff, oh, I've forgotten what I was going to say. I'm sorry. That's what happens when you sort of are talking off the cuff like this. Anyway, oh, that's right. Sorry. Yes, it came to me. So one thing I found out about his life and what it is that he was fascinated with another very famous German writer in the German-speaking realm that I know my father also loved his stuff too, and that is the German writer Karl May, who wrote tons and tons of adventure stories for boys, and kind of in the 19th century, and he was sort of, as far as I know, he was in jail at some point. And his most famous story is about this Native American Indian called Winnetou. Winnetou's books are just such a big deal in Germany, in the German cultural imagination. And apparently he was really interested. He had, in his library, he had all of Karl May's books. And I've even found one term that comes up in the story, and that the people who wrote the master's work, they say, well, that's from his reading of Winnetou. That's where he's gotten this. And you can sort of see like the way he describes the landscape and them sort of trekking through this landscape. It's not that far off from, you know, an adventure story, even though it's something else is going on and he's trying to make some other more political or more sort of deeper points. It's not just entertainment. It's better than that. So yeah, Winnetou, and then who else was it? Oh, Karl May. And and then I found out that he's written a 700-page biography of one of the authors that we read in my fairy tale class. I did not know this. He was written, and it's another person that most of you won't know, but you might know the story. It's called Undine or Undine, about a mermaid, well, a watery woman, lady, a river. Undine are nature spirits, and the author is Friedrich de la Motte Fouquet, who wrote Undine, one of the most famous mermaid type stories, and actually written before Andersen, I think. Or was it the other way around? I'm trying to think which one was first. I think Undine is first, but I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's first. It's earlier. So, and he wrote a biography of him. Arno Schmidt did, and it's sort of interesting because de la Motte Fouquet is really, his only claim to fame is Undine. So I'm a little bit intrigued as to what made him want to do this, write a biography about this other guy. He's not known, and also Undine is great, but it's not the best prose you've ever read. It's a little flowery in my opinion, but it's good. The story's good. It does its job, but in terms of prose, I don't know. It's a little too purple. So yeah, that's about it I don't have any other updates. I have not been able to make any headway with Miss Macintosh. I'm so sorry. Time is just a little bit not abundant right now. And, you know, I'm going to keep it on there because but I'm sort of, as I go through the semester, it looks like I will be going to Germany for the better part of, so for half of May and half of June. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know if will have read Miss Macintosh by then, because I'll be teaching the whole time and I'll get busy with so that's what I mean by, I don't know. I mean, I won't be able to take it with me. It's too heavy. It's too big. I mean, I guess I could I won't do this, but I could see someone making copies of chapters of it or something, but I don't think I will. It's not on Kindle. Wouldn't that be nice? Dalkey Archive, get on that. No, I don't think so. So anyways, that's all I have to talk. Oh, and the audiobook's also going well, but I don't need to update you about that every week either. It's very long, and there's still mayhem, and it's really interesting. It's good. The Memories of Ice book. Thank you all for watching. I know it's always a bit hard for people to comment on these strange works that I'm reading, but you know, there's quite a few of you, and I hope you enjoy me blabbing at you about them. Feel free to comment on what you're reading or anything else you have to say, and I will see you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.